Catherine, a long-time marketer, corporate juggernaut, well-known Jamaican executive manager, and doing all sorts of wonderful things, including motivating people. Welcome to Digital Housing.
Thank you for having me.
And Lisandra, who has been an amazing supporter of Digital Housing over the years. I think this is probably the fourth Digital Housing. So I am looking forward to this conversation. This is my first time hosting Digital Housing, but you have hosted several panels, so you may have to help me out here.
No problem.
But I'll jump into the conversation, Lisandra, by talking to you a little bit about the business that you have just started. You made an amazing step into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Can I talk to me about what happened there and why you made that decision?
Sure. So most people will know me as the former CEO of the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship. And I was at the Branson Center for 7 years. And, you know, in a career, the 7-year itch is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about, well, what would I do next? And the clear next step for me was to become an entrepreneur myself and build something. And what I noticed while working at the Branson Center is that leadership and talent mattered a lot for success in business outcomes. You could have the best business model ever, but if you didn't have a fantastic entrepreneur behind that business model, that business would not do as well, wouldn't have as good outcomes. And so that issue of talent and talent development and really working with the individuals, with the founders, became more and more important to me. And I became less interested in the business itself and more interested in the people behind the business and how do you design a career over time and what choices do you make, because a career spans, your relationship to capital and how you use your talent and your labor to earn income, right? And that could be through an entrepreneurial career or through a traditional career. They're all on the same spectrum of career. And so when I decided that I wanted to start my own business, it was going to be in this area of talent and really making sure that people were aligned with their true, authentic personality, psychometrics, their true selves, in order to create better outcomes in their careers.
Wonderful. And Catherine Goodall, you have been building Emerge, which you have an amazing guest. What are you building there?
Oh, wow. So for us, Emerge was birthed from seeing a gap of people not being able to figure out what's next.
Right.
And so it was really the coming together of Rachel Cameron, Naomi Garrick, and myself to help people to figure out what's next. So it's not just next steps in terms of career development, but it's next steps in terms of personal development.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I have this brilliant idea and I don't know what to do with it, or I'm stuck at this place in my career and I don't feel fulfilled anymore. What's next?
Yeah.
Or, you know, I have a dream. I have a goal to end up as a CEO of my company, and I don't know how to get there.
Right.
So it's really about workshops, summits that help with personal development.
Wonderful. And both of those kind of vision, those kind of gaps that you've identified is, I think, a good stepping point into the conversation. As the pandemic resets work, and resets how we do things. Has work changed? Is work changing? Is it permanent?
Drastically.
I don't know. I think, do you want to start?
Sure, yes. Work has changed forever. And there are trends that are on the micro level, at the company level, at the individual level, and there are trends that are at the global level and the national level, right? So at the micro level, the individual is seeing how their relationship to the space of work has changed, from working from home to, you know, using a lot more technology and digital tools, to trying to create community and camaraderie while being physically distant. And at the company level, the way they think about the work environment has changed significantly. So there's automation happening at a pace that has never happened before.
Yes.
There is contract labor, which we'll talk about. There is real estate questions and commercial real estate that's happening. On the national and global level, for me, the question is should jobs become borderless?
Right.
If we're now all working from wherever we want in the world, do jobs belong to a specific country, or are all jobs becoming more global and all talent around the world able to compete for the same job now? So all these trends are like shifting right beneath our feet and are recreating completely what it means to work.
All right. Is this a good or a bad thing? Catherine, is this good? Is this bad? Should we be scared?
So I don't know that it's good or bad. I would say it's mostly good,
Right.
or more good than bad.
Yeah.
Because like Lisandra said, you know, at the end of the day, it has helped us to move at a pace that we never predicted that we needed to move to. Because the reality is that in Jamaica, unfortunately, we have a lot of companies that are seasoned, that are very traditionally corporate. And so it has caused a lot of them to stop and realize that it's time to catch up with the rest of the world.
Right.
I mean, people have been working from home for a long time. People have been using flex hours for a long time. And you also find that people are a lot more productive now because they're spending less time on the road in traffic.
Yes.
You know, and so you have a lot more time to focus on what's important. And you realize that you don't need somebody standing up over you to get something done. Where I have found that a lot of us are a lot more productive now than when you're at the office, because there are a lot more distractions when you're in the same space as several other people.
Sure.
But I want to jump on that because that's the pro side of working from home, right? But there are big cons as well, especially for parents with young children. And now the borders or the boundaries between work and home have shifted so much that work is becoming a bigger and bigger percentage of your entire life because it's invaded the home space. So I'm finding that people love remote working, but not 100%.
Right.
I think we're going to move to some kind of hybrid between remote and not.
There's a lot of talk around our homes aren't designed for work. As a matter of fact, in a real way, I experienced this, even though I have a full office setup at my home now. Everything, my entire downstairs area is now my office, right? Which is great. But because I have lived in this home for a long time, I have a way of living in my home.
Yes.
And what I found in March when I made that transition is I worked from the spaces in my home that was comfortable to me. So I actually developed like a back pain because I wasn't sitting in the right chair. Is there a responsibility for companies to look at seating, furniture? Do they need to come in and assess? Do they need to what is the because everybody's trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
How does, as an entrepreneur, myself as an employer, what do I need to do to ensure that my team is effective in working?
Great question.
Yeah, and I think and I think the reality is that accountability is important, and the responsibility is ours. At the end of the day, if we're choosing to work from home, it's our responsibility to create that space. It's our responsibility to create those boundaries. It's our responsibility to understand what environment makes us the most productive. What environment is actually good. I mean, the fact that you can acknowledge that you need lumbar support. I mean, your employer is not going to be able to know that.
Sure.
Right? So you're going to have to take the initiative now to create a space that is going to help you to perform at the capacity that you need to.
So you're saying that it's important for employees or team members to hold their hands up and say, hey, this is not working for me. This is the new operating. What kind of support can you provide?
Yeah.
All right.
And I will take the opposite side of that argument and say that as the office environment becomes less important compared to the past, we need to shift some resources away from the office as owners of businesses and leaders of companies towards giving our team members the resources they need to set up their home environment properly. And the leading company in the world for remote working, in my opinion, is WordPress, Automatic, right? And there is a software engineer based in Jamaica that we know that works for WordPress. And they gave him a budget to deck out his home office the way he needed to in order to work many hours a day and be extremely comfortable.
Do I need to come to you to figure out what that budget should be?
Right? So he has this multi-screen setup, he has the ergonomic chair, and he's able to work effectively because the company supported him in being able to do that.
Right.
And so I absolutely think it's on the company leaders to shift resources away from the office to the individual who is now working from home.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. So there's another trend that is emerging, particularly around. So I run an agency. I run two businesses that are really consultancy-based businesses, and as a result of that, I work with a lot of freelancers. Like if except one person here, everybody who I'm working with just in this production is somebody that is external to me. And Garner research is now showing that 32% of what currently full-time employees are shifting to some kind of contractual type work. Is that a critical mass shift that is taking place? How good or bad is that?
So again, there are pros and cons for everything, right?
Sure.
And the reality is that COVID has helped a lot of employers to stop and realize that you might not need all the staff that you've had for the last 30 years.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, it has led to job loss for a lot of people because you've found different ways to become more efficient. But at the same time, it has allowed employees to stop and to do some introspection, to look at a few things. One, did I even want to be there in the first place? Two, what are the skill sets that I have learned or have developed that can now enable me to offer that service to somebody else?
Yeah.
And so it definitely, you know, the entire, and Lisandra spoke to it earlier, it's a global shift. And so everybody now is looking online for contract workers, is looking online for people to with specific skill sets. So it allows people to specialize in different areas now, as opposed to having, 20 different skill sets and not being able to master all of them.
Right.
Well, I agree with you, but I think it's a terrible shift for the worker.
Absolutely.
So companies are moving to contract workers in response to the uncertainty around the pandemic and not knowing how long it will last. And so in order to plan, to do corporate planning, you have to look at your team now as a variable cost, that when your demand goes up, you expand the team, when demand goes down, you contract the team. But at the same time, the individual wants more stability, wants more certainty. As the world collapses, the world we knew collapses around us, we want a steady income, and we're now more willing to take a full-time job than become an entrepreneur compared to pre-pandemic. So the needs of the business and the needs of the team member have shifted, and there's a disconnect there. And unfortunately, I think it's going to lead to a big inequality gap between highly skilled, high-performing team members who are service-driven and can work from a laptop versus the low-skilled worker who has to go in and deliver in-person services.
Right.
Some jobs cannot be remote. Some jobs cannot be work from home. And so this disparity, governments are really going to have to step in to level the playing field a little bit. And workers need to upskill themselves. The best thing you can do for yourself is to get training online, get more certifications, and upskill yourself so that your skills are more transferable to what?
So you sounded like there's an apartheid that is being created.
And I also think it's important to note that a lot of employers are taking advantage of this COVID situation. And so you find that a lot of people are in limbo because they're continuing to be laid off, whether it's legal or not. They've crossed over the 3 months and now they're saying, well, we're extending it for another 3 months, which absolutely is not legal. And people's pay cuts, salaries have been cut by 50-60%, and there is no timeline around when that's going to change.
But isn't there a real, we look at the data for the last 2 quarters. Starting indicated that between March and up to the end of August, I think we declined, the economy declined by about 10%.
Yeah.
So there are certain big part, we look at what is happening in the tourism sector, which represents 40% of our foreign exchange earning. There are some real challenges for businesses. So in a way, how do you reconcile both? And should governments be stepping up a little bit more? In a Jamaican context, that might be difficult. But where do we find the balance? Because there are certain businesses that are really, really hurting as a result of the pandemic.
I read a report last night that showed that this shift to contract work is primarily in the accommodations and service industry. So we're seeing like high tech and insurance and financial services, they're not shifting to contract workers as much as the hospitality sector.
Right.
And the reason for that, of course, is the demand in hospitality is gone.
Right.
And so that creates a massive problem, like you said. However, where the demand has grown is in cybersecurity, workplace safety. There are areas where logistics.
Yeah.
There are areas where demand has grown exponentially. We were just talking about that, Catherine, in your company, right? Your demand has gone right through the roof. And so workers need to be reskilled away from those jobs that they've lost and towards the new jobs. And that's where governments, corporates with large pools of capital can really step in and help the worker to transition.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's shift a little bit. You touched on training.
Yeah.
You have done a lot with Emerge, trying to kind of get people to realize that self-development is an important element. How important? What kind of skills that we need to function in what I will term the digital economy? What are the skills in a Jamaican context that we really need to quickly move to be relevant to anything that we're doing right now?
So I think that first of all, of course, I'm going to say leadership is one of the first things that we need to work on, because I think in Jamaica we need to accept that there's a difference between being a manager and being a leader. And being a leader really it's not positional. It's about the way that you think. It's about the way that you interact with people. It's about the way. And so leadership is important because that also helps to transition into the other things, into time management, into networking, into, your work ethic. All of those things are dictated by the way that you think, right? And so Lisandra spoke to it earlier. I mean, we're all moving in a digital age, right? And so right now thank God, training is accessible to any and everybody. Online, there are so many courses that are being given away for free. Use this as an opportunity to do them. Specialize in something, whether it is Facebook marketing and advertising, it could be LinkedIn, specializing in anything. Find something that you can learn that you can stand out based on the level of your expertise and your experience. And if you need to give it away for free to start, give it away for free to start.
I agree with what you said. So what I'm going to do is now take the conversation sideways a little bit, Javette, if you'll allow me.
No, please.
Which is why I think companies are shifting to contract labor so much is it's a transition until they figure out automation, right? And artificial intelligence, chatbots, even something as simple as chatbots taking the place of customer service reps. It's going to replace a lot of jobs.
Sure.
So this is the future that I think we're heading into, where some jobs are going to be now gone to robots, right? Forever.
Yes.
So what does that mean for work and income and a career long term in the next 10 years?
Yeah.
And because COVID has accelerated that shift to automation and artificial intelligence. So this contract labor situation is an interim solution to move to robots and bots, right? So my recommendation is number one, we're going to decouple work from income, right? That is what Soul Career is about, finding work that is meaningful for you, that comes from within you and is aligned with your personality. And the future is income. I think we're going to move to universal basic income. I see no other way forward. This is a big debate in the US, and I think this is inevitable for the world. Yeah. And that work will now be creation. We will no longer have to work for money. What we will work is to create value so that we can capture more value above a certain universal basic income.
Absolutely.
So if this is the future, what does that mean today? That means today that we have to prepare ourselves and create and get the skills that will prepare us to bring forth very valuable products and services. Not something that's task-driven, not something that's easily replicable or can be gone to machine learning very quickly, but something that is valuable. And the areas I mentioned before, education, healthcare, cybersecurity, automation itself, data, like upskill yourselves in those areas to prepare for this new future that we're all moving into.
Wonderful.
Did
Wow.
I go too sideways in that?
Wow.
Absolutely not.
But it's heavy stuff though.
But that same value that you're adding, that Lisandra is talking about, is applicable to every single thing that we do on a daily basis, right? At the end of the day, even in corporate, your boss or whoever the decision makers are paying attention, especially now, to who is adding that value in the company. And so that is why, that's what separates you from everybody else that's there.
Yes.
No, but this is a good segue for my next question,
Okay.
which is the personal development and the personal responsibility question. You've both spoke to the whole an individual now assuming more responsibility for their own career, their own direction. Gone are the days where you come in and you have this management training program, which you sit down with every officer and they teach you what to do and all of that. It's now about more being a self-directed. You want to call it creative tension. creative tension where you're really affecting your own trajectory.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that and how people who are sitting here who are thinking, Lord, how do I do that? Where are the initial things that you would say for them? We heard a lot about reading. We heard a lot about educational resources online. Where does that person who is like, my job is one of those jobs that is going to probably go, where do they start on the personal development, on the upskilling part of it?
Well, I would definitely default to Lisandra because she is the sole career lady. And I have participated in Lisandra's course and I follow everything that she does.
Yes.
And I'm a big proponent too for personality tests. So I do the DISC test. Just because I think it's easier to process and to understand. But first of all, I would start with knowing who you are. A lot of us think that we know ourselves. And the reality is that maybe not so much. And it's okay to have, not be the same person now that we were 5 years ago. And so I actually like to do the personality test every year and I hope that there's some change, right?
Yes.
So I would definitely say start with a personality test just to have a real understanding of who you are and if who you are and the things that you enjoy are really the things that you think you do.
Right.
So I would definitely say start with a personality test. I would say also think about what you're passionate about. What are the things that bring you that joy? And again, I'm sure Lisandra will talk about it because her thing is soul career. It's what's inside. What's that thing that drives me, that I'm passionate about. Because you're good at something doesn't mean that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I'm good at marketing. I think I'm good at marketing, and I love it, but I love other things.
Yes.
And so think about what you're passionate about. What is it that you spend the most of your time doing? And what are the things that you'd be willing to do for free just because you enjoy it?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. So, yes, Catherine just laid out my program right there. So, your unique value proposition lies at the intersection of your psychometrics, how you position yourselves and the skills that you acquire, and then your persistence and your ability to take consistent action towards the life that you envision for yourself. So those three things will form where...
Can you say that again, please?
This is the soul career model. This is our framework, right? So 3 Ps, psychometrics, positioning, and persistence, right? And in order to be persistent, you have to know what the end goal is. And you have to work backwards from the end goal. So that's what Catherine talked about. The first step is understanding the self. And then now you have to create a vision for your life that is in alignment with your unique strengths and your motivations and your interests. And that is where most of my clients find it very hard to envision what they want for their lives. Because the way we've been educated is people telling us what to do and telling us what success is, right? And so you follow a predefined path. You go to college, then you get the job, the big job with the big title, etc. That's what success used to be. But we have to redefine success for ourselves. And once we do that, then the kind of courses to take becomes very clear. The kind of skills to acquire becomes very clear. And you can go Coursera, LinkedIn. There's so many online platforms to learn. But Learning is one thing. What will position
Applying
you, now we're talking about positioning now, what will position you at the top of the pile over other candidates applying for similar roles, similar freelance positions, etc., is your portfolio. It's going to be your experience, your body of work that is in alignment with the vision and the definition of success that you came up with.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
so I'll just end by saying that body of work you create is going to be really important. So it's not enough to just get skilled. Create things and
Yeah.
put it out there and increase your visibility.
All right.
But one quick thing,
Sure.
I think it's also important to understand that it's okay to ask for help.
Yes.
I mean, that's why you have. Let me tell you something. I believe that coaching is very important.
Yeah.
And anybody that is a coach that doesn't have a coach, do not go to them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So should I be
Coaching is
asking
important.
who is your coach?
Oh, I have several.
What I need, if I need to go to a coach, should I be asking who is coaching you?
Possible, but guess what? My coach might not be the right fit for you.
Right, sure.
So it's important to ask for help and make sure that you find somebody that can help you to visualize what it is that you need to do.
All right. So I want to shift the discussion around some hardcore issues now.
Those are
Private.
hardcore stuff.
No, hardcore, but this is now legal and ethics and,
Okay.
and business and data protection. So we're working from home, we're transmitting sensitive information. How do we manage those things? Somebody has their work laptop, their client information, they are accessing the cloud. How do we navigate all of this while also working on self-improvement, also working on coaching and training, also learning to code or something else from... How are we doing all of this?
So I'm a big believer in keeping, especially now working from home, in keeping work separate from personal.
Right.
And especially if you're working for a company, that is definitely one of the things that I think your company needs to provide.
Yeah.
Right? So if I am doing Point Global's work,
Sure.
it should only be Point Global's work on Point Global's laptop. Anything else should be my personal work on my personal laptop.
Right. Before I bring in, can employees expect any degree of privacy when using a work machine? Is it okay for me to tunnel into the Point Global laptop to see what's going on? For example, while the employee is working from home.
So again-
they work 9 to 5. This is the schedule. They should be working. They should be online. For example, at Point Global, we have so many tools for collaboration, exchange, all of that. So, for example, we use Slack a lot for communication. Approve this. How does this look? Feedback. And we have many other tools. Harvest, for example, at our US office to track time. All of these things. Is it okay for an employer to tap into the machine and say, okay, I'm going to look at what my developer is doing?
I want to hear what Catherine
So no, I believe that if I am hiring you to do a job, then my responsibility is to just make sure you deliver on whatever it is that you said you're going to deliver on.
Right.
As long as you are delivering, then I shouldn't feel compelled to have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. One thing is surveillance, and the other thing is collaboration, right?
Exactly.
So what you described was collaboration, but then there is an extreme that's surveillance.
Right.
And whether you're subjected to surveillance by a corporation or not depends, I think, on the level of trust between the leadership and the team.
Yeah.
And that level of trust depends on, I think, the skill level of the team, right? So if you have a lot of entry-level workers, there might be more surveillance. So, for example, business process outsourcing companies have a lot of surveillance.
Right.
They have very high turnover. They have employees where this is their first job, right? Who may not understand,
And
their
they manage
working
very
style,
sensitive information.
right? And they're managing very sensitive information. So there's a lot of surveillance in that industry.
Right.
But if you are a highly skilled worker who is managerial level or above, it's really based on results, as Catherine said, and you don't have to have as much surveillance because there may be more trust
Yeah.
between the leadership and that worker. So again, I think the future is pointing to get as highly skilled as possible.
Yeah.
Every worker needs to do that.
Yes.
Everybody, including entrepreneurs, CEOs, you have to upskill yourself because
Yeah.
your business is going to disappear if you don't.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
That's what the new reality is,
Wow.
unfortunately.
Wow. There's so much to go into for that, but we don't
I
have
have a
enough.
positive side though.
Yes, yes.
I think that jobs are going to become more global
Mhm.
and not insular into a country. So there are more opportunities than ever before, right? So that's the positive side. On the flip side, we have to do more work than ever
Yeah.
before to compete in this new global
Global
market
landscape,
for talent.
Right. So I hear this thing, the gig economy. What is the gig economy?
Contract work. I mean, I realize that we like to use these fancy terms, and it confuses people
Yeah,
because the gig economy really is contract work.
Right. Is that what you're speaking to when you think about the global nature of work? Because I can probably get a contract somewhere else, or is that something different?
It's both, right? So most global work is contractual because taxes and labor laws are specific to a country.
Right.
So if
Sometimes even a state.
Yeah.
Right. So if I have an American company and I'm hiring a Jamaican, that Jamaican who resides in Jamaica has to pay taxes in Jamaica where they reside. So there's a lot of tax implications around that.
Right.
So it tends to be contract work. However, the gig economy, to me, is more project based.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's projects versus like a full-time job.
Yeah.
Right.
Jamaican labor laws, if you hire a contract worker and that contract never ends,
Yes.
they're an employee and you have to pay employer taxes.
Yeah.
The labor ministry is very powerful in that here and in Europe they have very powerful labor laws. Americans are not as protected as Jamaicans are in that regard. So employers have to be very careful around how they're structuring these gigs and these contract
Right,
workers
right.
to not make them look like full-time workers because it looks like tax avoidance.
Right.
So labor and taxes go hand in hand.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Wow. A lot to unpack.
We could go all
we could go all
day.
day. However, I will have to conclude. So, like State of the Union, state of work. What for 30 seconds to a minute, give us for everybody watching. What are the things that they should be aware of? What are the things that they should be driving to? We have alluded to it, but in summary, where should we be going?
Yeah, I would say spend the time to focus on who you are and where it is that you want to be and who you want to become, and spend the time and the effort developing that person.
You have 30 seconds to 1 minute. Catherine, that's all I'm going to say. Okay, I had a much longer thing prepared.
Go ahead, she might chime in out.
I think that the moment that we're in is scary. Uncertainty and change is scary, but it's also full of opportunity.
Yes.
So we're going to have to cultivate the neuroplasticity of our minds.
Yes.
Which means that minds that have been programmed in a very rigid way, like rote memorization that we learn in our education system here, etc., that is archaic. That is out the door. Our minds have to be programmed to be constantly changing, very adaptable and very flexible. So we now have to cultivate this mindset of continuous learning. Learning is lifelong.
Yes.
Learning doesn't end at school, or it doesn't end with a degree. It's forever, right? And once you cultivate that adaptability, that plasticity of the mind, your ability to learn more, then you can always shift, you can always change with the times, and you can take advantage of the millions of new opportunities that are coming out in this emerging landscape.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to say it again, do not be afraid to ask for help, especially now when especially for people that live alone or for parents that are overwhelmed by so many different things that are happening at the same time. It's okay to ask for help.
And, sorry, Javette.
No, go ahead.
And, there's so much change and distraction that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need a break and to do nothing, just to
Absolutely.
take care of ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
Mental health days are real.
We were talking about the presidential debates last night.
Oh God, that was
At
bewildering.
first, block that out of my, right? Because we need to be able to take the time for ourselves when we need it. Don't feel so compelled to drive yourself into the ground, right?
Yeah.
We have to stop sometimes, give ourselves a break, and then we
Reset.
come back
Absolutely.
and we try again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine Goodall, Lisandra Rickards, amazing conversation on the state of work. We could go on for hours. Unfortunately, we have to stop it here. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll come back with another amazing conversation with Dwayne Samuels around client acquisition, how you build an online business, and how he's thriving in Silicon Valley. So join us in about 5 minutes for that conversation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.